help us, really? I mean, or does it damage our trust? And if it does damage it, is that necessary?
I think what will be very interesting is when we see the results of the inquiry. One of the problems with this inquiry is that the bits that hit the headlines are very much the sort of, more, if you like, sort of gory details of how government was being conducted, the stuff that comes out in the oral evidence session where we can watch clips on our televisions with those bad language warnings and things like that. I think the real value of the inquiry, if it is going to have any value, will be in what does it tell us about how well prepared we were, and crucially how we can cope with pandemics better in the future. I mean, there isn't really any point in an inquiry if all it is going to wallow around and allocate out blame for last time without the possibility that it actually makes us, or both in the UK government and in the Scottish government, able to think in advance about how do we cope with these really exceptional events much, much better. So I think it'd be interesting. And there is, although we focus very much on the oral evidence, there is huge amounts of written evidence and papers going in. And sometimes you're slightly worried that the lines of inquiry from the KCs focus on some of the sort of more headline grabbing elements rather than on the sort of day-to-day nitty-gritty of how government works, which is where the value potentially lies.
Yeah, it's not meant to generate headlines, particularly on a day-to-day basis. This is designed, isn't it, to help us understand and not make same mistakes again. Ellie, let me come back to you. There is a fine line, isn't there, between healthy scepticism in government and a complete lack of trust, which can become very problematic for a society.
Absolutely. So we differentiate between two types of not trusting someone. One is mistrust, and that's the type that you're talking about. It's very healthy. We want people to scrutinize politicians. We want them to ask questions. We don't want people to blindly follow everything that's being done. The problem starts when we get into distrust. That's when people start disengaging, getting cynical, turning away potentially to more polarized opinions, to more extreme opinions. And the problem is that doesn't really help the situation. That's not going to improve anything that's being decided in Parliament. So we are actually trying, from the John Smith Centre, we're trying to change that narrative. And when people do turn to distrust, saying, okay, you don't see yourself represented, you don't see yourself living better, but what can you do? How can you get involved? And we're trying to get those groups involved into politics. Yeah,
there's one tiny difference in terms of the spelling. It's one consonant difference, isn't it, in the spelling, but a world of difference when it's between a healthy scepticism and January the 6th in America, isn't it? Jill, very briefly, let me come back to you finally. How do politicians go about rebuilding trust?
I think they should behave better. I mean, obviously there's huge loss of trust over Partygate in the UK government. I think it's anything quite parallel come out yet in Scotland. So to behave better and actually just sort of govern in a more competent way where they can, reveal the reasons they're taking decisions and bring the public with them rather than sort of appear to do things for politically convenient reasons and actually act as a team rather than act as ferrets in a sack or trying to score one over each other.
Yeah, sounds easy and obvious, doesn't it? What could be simpler than that? Let's see how they get on with it, though. History tells us it might not be quite so simple. Jill Rutter from the Institute of Government, Dr. Ellie Lewis from the John Smith Centre, thank you both very much indeed for being with us this Sunday morning. Right then, here is your 30-second warning. If you've still to watch the final of Traitors, there are spoilers coming down the line. Go away, make a cup of tea, come back.